Our next live English session will be next Monday on November 18th, and that will be with me. I haven't had the opportunity to share with you all in quite a few weeks, so I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. The Parkinson's Foundation hosts weekly education and wellness programs through our Ph.D. Health at Home virtual programming, which you guys have already found us for our Mindfulness Mondays. You can join us for Wellness Wednesdays and our Fitness Fridays. Our next Wellness Wednesday, which will be hosted this Wednesday, is an expert briefing on thinking and memory changes in Parkinson's. Some of you may know cognitive changes, including slowness in thinking, decreased attention span, and difficulty finding words can often occur in Parkinson's disease, and these changes, along with memory loss, can be frustrating and challenging, not only for the person with Parkinson's, but those close to them. And so this week on Wellness Wednesday, we'll review cognitive and memory changes in Parkinson's, as well as practical strategies to help with daily activities. You can learn more and register for any of our PD Health at Home programs at parkinson.org/pdhealth. And adding on from our Care Partner Summit, here's a quick outline of what to look forward to for the entire series. We kicked off the summit on November 2nd, hosted an additional webinar on November 6th, and we'll complete this year's summit on November 20th for an exploration of the essential tools that may include tips for self-care, strategies for building support networks, and enhancing communication skills. The recording of the previous sessions have been posted on our YouTube channel, and I hope that you will join us for the conclusion of this year's Care Partner Summit on November 20th. This Friday is Live Fitness Friday, so November 15th, you'll learn body mapping techniques to enhance coordination, control, and fluidity in exercises like boxing, strength training, and balance work. We'll focus on integrating the whole body using eye movements to boost rotation and movement control. You can sign up to attend that live stream again at parkinson.org/pdhealth. And now I invite us into the space of mindfulness. Today we welcome back Dr. Taylor Rush. Dr. Rush, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Krista. It's always good to be here with all of you guys as well. I'm just looking at the chat and all the places people are calling in from today. A couple from the UK. I was actually there last month and actually had nice weather, luckily, while I was there. So not terribly cold like Steve is saying it is there now. So I'm so glad to be able to spend some time with you guys today to talk a little bit about narrative mindfulness. And that may sound interesting and maybe a little odd, but go with me on this. So I often find that when I'm working with individuals who have Parkinson's, that some of our therapy ends up focusing a bit on life review. So meaning how people construct stories from their experiences in life. Because oftentimes those stories and how we narrate those experiences of our lives can influence so much. It influences our sense of identity and our sense of purpose and meaning, as well as, the lessons that we've learned in life. And we know that storytelling narration has been a very powerful part of being a human for millennia. Story has existed forever. And I think sometimes we don't necessarily always fully acknowledge the power of that narrative in our own lives. And what I have found in my practice is that when we engage in some of these life review, storytelling kind of narrative practices in my sessions with people, I often find that we end up incorporating a bit of mindfulness in that work, because a lot of the people that I see who are managing Parkinson's are trying to integrate changes in their identity, because who they see themselves as a person may change to some extent. How they're able to trust their body and the things that they're able to do can change. And sometimes that ends up also influencing people's narratives about themselves. And I think that sometimes that can be for a positive been, but sometimes also it can skew a bit negatively. And I think that a lot of times, this sense of identity that gets challenged can disrupt people's narratives as to who they see themselves as and how they're an active agent within their own lives. And so, something that I can hear quite often is people saying that the things that used to define them are no longer around. It might have been a job, it might have been parenting, and or they may have been incredibly active or athletic. And now when they look at some of their some of their challenges, some of the functional limitations that they may experience, some of the symptoms that they have, they feel less than, and they may see their lives and their functional abilities through what I call a deficit lens. So what are all the things that are wrong? Rather than sometimes I think also recognizing and seeing their strengths. And so when we think about narrative and, oh, I used to be this very strong and capable person, I used to be very independent, I used to be very confident in social situations, and now that's not me. And I think again, we see all of those deficits, and rather than the strengths of, well, I'm still pretty persistent because, I get things done even though it might be more difficult. Or, I'm still a social person, but, I might need to do it in smaller dosages because, my energy tank isn't as big as it used to be. And so I think it's important for us to sometimes take a step back mindfully and sometimes reframe and reconstruct our narrative to be more inclusive of the whole story, not just the deficits, not just how we're different now, than we were in the past, because all of us are different now than we were in the past to some degree. And so, how do we create what we call narrative coherence, which means that we're creating a consistent self story that can incorporate changes that occur to us physically, emotionally, logistically, whatever it might be. And so, being able to then mindfully observe our own experiences that are happening right now and some of that narrative that we surround it with, and trying to understand how we can do that. Remember, being mindful is being able to see something for what it is without judgment. And sometimes also being offered, offer yourself some compassion. It can sometimes help to make some of those identity shifts a little bit smoother, not completely smooth, not that it's always something that's desired or wanted, but how can we incorporate the whole picture of who you are? And so, some ways of doing this on your own, if this is, an intriguing idea to you, is, one thing that I'll have people do is, journaling mindfully. And by that, I mean just kind of allowing a stream of conscious thought, of things that are going on in your life, ways in which you see yourself in those, capacities, as, the person you are now. What are the opportunities that you've had to engage with others or be able to do things for yourself that matter? And so just being able to see it and take note of it, because when we're able to take note of things, it becomes more part of our story. If we don't take note of things, it might not become so much a part of our story. And also being able to verbally share stories with people that you care about. So if it's family or friends, or perhaps in, a Parkinson support community like here, but being able to sometimes share our story, share our narratives can be incredibly powerful in better understanding ourselves and perhaps things that we hadn't even really objectively understood about ourselves. And it can also be helpful to sometimes use meditation space to focus on your self narrative, ways in which you can sit with yourself and recognize those thoughts and recognize that story that you're telling yourself about your life, your current circumstances, your relationships, can actually be incredibly helpful, and also help you to better understand how you want to move forward with your narrative for the future. So I thought maybe we could practice this a little bit in our time today and do a little mindful storytelling exercise. So, no pen and paper required. This will all be in your own mind. And as always, let's get into a comfortable position and whatever space and posture makes the most sense for you. If you want to sit or lay down or recline, and just find yourself settling into your space. You can close your eyes if it's comfortable for you. Just find a soft place a few feet in front of you where you can gaze. And consider anchoring to the breath as a way to set your intention to be with yourself right here, right now. Noticing your body, maybe noticing any thoughts that are going through your head, noticing any noise that might be surrounding you wherever you are. It's just a way to create a checkpoint for this moment. You are aware of those senses and what they're telling you. As you notice the rhythm of your breath as it comes in and goes out, remembering there's nowhere else you have to be. You are exactly where you need to be, right here, right now. As you start to settle, I want to encourage you to think of a possible challenging moment that you may have had recently. And for some people, it could be directly related to Parkinson's symptoms. Might be, I was out to a social occasion and my tremor was acting up and I noticed that people noticed. And that was challenging for me. Or I was in a crowded place and my balance was a little off, or I used an assistive device and it was a bit cramped to navigate. So it could be directly related to Parkinson's symptoms, or it might be related to an activity that you tried to do, but it was more challenging as a result of some limitations from your body. And these aren't always easy things to conjure. And so it's okay to be gentle with yourself when thinking of a recent challenging moment. The point of this is not to serve as embarrassment or discomfort, but objective self-reflection. If you have a particular memory in mind, I encourage you to think about how you could narrate that situation without judgment. Being able to internally comment on the thoughts you were experiencing, some of the emotions you were experiencing. and also the physical sensations that you felt. And for some, you may notice that the thoughts that you were having at the time might have been critical or anxious, maybe focusing on parts of the situation where you didn't have control or that felt distressing. Or again, that you may have been looking at that situation through a deficit lens and the things that you weren't able to do, or the things that were challenging. And as you kind of paint this picture and try to observe those thoughts and emotions and those physical sensations at the time, I want you to see if there's opportunity to identify the strengths that you exhibited in that situation. What got you through? Might have been a strength where you asked for help, which is a strength. Knowing what we may need and ask for it is incredibly important skill. It might have been that you were able to focus on parts of the situation where you had control. So you may not have been able to control a tremor, but you can control a topic of conversation with someone. You may not be able to control a busy environment, but you could control being mindful of how you used your feet and how you stepped. Thinking about the strengths that you had in that situation and the resilience it takes to get through challenging moments like that. So being able to incorporate those strengths, being able to incorporate the things that you did to get through a tough situation, a tough challenge, while also acknowledging that there were some challenging parts to it. How can we weave a narrative that incorporates both? Recognizing your own growth and your ability to adapt. What does it feel like to do that? For some people, it's uncomfortable to think about their strengths. For some, it helps them to facilitate a bit of self-compassion for what they're going through. Might mean that you can say things a little kinder to yourself. Sometimes it can bolster confidence that even if tough situations arise, you can get through them. Giving yourself a moment to recognize all the threads that tie into that narrative. And recognizing there are parts of yourself that endure that are incredible strengths. And sometimes we just need to give a little bit more water and food to. If you're ready, you can slowly come back to focusing on the sensation of your breath in and out. Briefly thanking yourself for what you did just now, being able to highlight your own narrative, being able to reflect on a challenging situation, and being able to find some threads of strength that you can weave in. They're there anyways, just a matter of acknowledging their existence. Maybe even thanking your body for what it is still able to do for you, even though it may be fallible and there's more struggle. There are things that it's still looking out for you over. You can be a friend rather than an adversary with yourself. When you're ready, start incorporating a little bit of more active movement. Roll your shoulders, shift your weight in your pelvis. Maybe slowly wiggling fingers and toes, gaining more active awareness of your surroundings, opening your eyes if it feels good to you. And coming back to our virtual room here when you're ready. Starting to see some eyes. Thank you guys for going on that little journey with me. And I think, as always, would love to hear your thoughts and comments on this practice within our chat. I I do this a little bit with even my daughter, who there's a lot of interesting personal narratives that go on in teenagers' minds, and talking to her about not only the things that may have gone wrong in a situation, but what did she do that got her through the situation. And so I think sometimes when we can start this early in our lives, it can have these ripple effects throughout. And so sometimes even reflecting back to when you were young and the narratives that you might have had, a few decades ago, it's interesting how those threads can sometimes connect even much, much later. And so let's see. So I've had a few comments. So Krista had said, thank you for offering the invitation to shift the dialogue we consistently have with ourselves. Yes. And we think we have this steady stream of consciousness of thoughts that runs through our heads that I think we don't necessarily always, kind of tap into and recognize how much that may gear our perspective on things. And Someone said, I still have value and purpose. I tell myself I'm I tell myself I'm nothing since I've lost everything, but gratitude is what it is. And I love focusing on what my body can do and feeling thankful for resilience and the ability to modify and still remain active. And and someone had said it did help me with my mental confidence. I, I'm I am so grateful that you guys, every time I show up, I'm never quite sure what you're going to think of the topics that I bring to the table. And you always come so open-minded and so willing. And so I love that you're able to use these practices to your advantage and are open to them even when they're hard and they're uncomfortable, because to be able to think about our narrative can sometimes be a really challenging thing. And so, and some people are mentioning that, even when we can do that, yeah, there can still be anxiety, there can still be depression, there can still be grief associated with losses. And that we're not, we don't have a magic wand that erases that. It's part of human experience, good, bad, and everything in between, right? And so, but to be able to give yourself that gift of space to reflect on all of it, right? The things that are challenging, the things that are rewarding, the things that you bring to the table, I think is an incredibly powerful thing and such a gift to be able to give yourself. So I'm glad to hear that you're able to kind of see both ends of it, right? That it's challenging and life is hard, but then we also have these things that we can focus on that are strengths. And someone said it was nice to be reminded that I still have things to offer others and myself. And so thank you guys. And that is definitely part of what I was hoping for you to come away with. Someone said I needed the reminder to be compassionate with myself. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for your time today. And I will pass it over to Krista for any last words.
Thank you, Dr. Rush. It's a consistent reminder that's needed no matter how strong we think our brains are and our minds are, to consistently be reminded of these things that we can shift. Letting go of the shackles of shoulds and coming into the idea of could, and finding those perspectives of what I am able to do and who I still impact. It's a beautiful, beautiful takeaway message for our session today. So thank you, Dr. Rush, so much for your guidance as always. Really appreciate you. And again, thanking each of you who continue to show up. This community is not possible without your presence, and I will continue to time and time again express my gratitude for the way that you show up for yourself, for this community, and for me, and for Dr. Rush and everyone else who watches these videos in the archives. It's a tremendous honor to be able to share this space with you. If you had a question today that went unanswered, please do not hesitate to reach out to our helpline. We have a comprehensive website as well with many resources that addresses everything related to Parkinson. That website's parkinson.org. Our helpline is 1-800-4PD-INFO. You can also email us at helpline@parkinson.org. A couple of invitations to share with you to help us push the needle forward in Parkinson's research. The foundation is proud to partner in a new NIH-funded study exclusively for family caregivers of people living with Parkinson's disease with cognitive change, hallucinations, or dementia, or people with Lewy body dementia. This study, called Persevere, is entirely virtual. Persevere was created to try to understand whether and how a disease-specific caregiver-centered educational intervention can improve caregiver knowledge, confidence, strain, and even health outcomes. So you can learn more about the study by visiting the Persevere website here and scanning the QR codes. I appreciate you considering supporting our research efforts in Parkinson's. And since our founding, the foundation has funded more than $449 million in groundbreaking research and care. PD Generation Mapping the Future of Parkinson's Disease is a global research study that provides genetic testing and genetic counseling at no cost for people diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And by joining PD Generation, you can discover your individual connection to the disease while helping map the future of tomorrow's breakthroughs. So please share this opportunity for advancing research towards a cure with your community of individuals who are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And I'll end with the slide for you to connect with us beyond Mindfulness Mondays. Our helpline information is here for you. We are here for you. And I will see you, if not this Wednesday, if not this Fitness Friday, the next Mindfulness Monday. Be well, everyone. Talk soon.